when I see this as an issue is when I see the parents so clearly trying to like live vicariously through their kid, and I hate seeing that because that's just not fair. Welcome back to another episode of the Gimbal Guys podcast. We're your hosts, Nick Jones and Sam Nato, which sounds weird because what I was saying the other day to someone actually is I never say people's real like full names to them. So saying your name out loud like that sounds weird coming out of my mouth. I was literally talking to my friend Brandon like 2 days ago, and this is like the weird things that I think about like all the time actually, this one thing, and I'm like, I just verbalized it to him. I was like, yeah, like I never actually say like, hey Brandon. I'm just like, hey. Yeah. Or like I just say what I need from you. So then when I said, hey
very
Brandon,
few times have I heard you say my name out loud.
I never say to you like, hey Sam. It sounds weird and feels weird coming out of my mouth. I'll say your name talking about you to like other people, like, oh yeah, Sam did this, Sam was that, blah, blah, but never to you.
Yeah. I have a connection to make here with because I have a theory about why you stink at remembering names. For those of you who don't know,
I am horrible.
I have to remind Nick of people's names all the time.
Like literally so bad. They like the wedding coordinators will say their name to me, or their assistant will say their name to me. I will like turn away, reach for something, turn around, and I'm like, I forget your name. And it was literally 10 seconds ago. Like so bad.
I think it's because you don't say their names to them.
Okay, but
because that's a key way people remember. I guess I don't either, but it's a way to remember people's names. So maybe you should start doing it, and then maybe, just maybe, you'll remember somebody's name.
And so I'm not just saying like, "Hey you,"
after the first attempt. Hey you
with the binder.
Oh like, nah, I think it's the same thing too. I say your name more often. I say like Nick, plenty of times. But
not really like to me though. Like
Nick Jones.
Do you ever say my name to like get my attention or to say something to me? I don't think so. It's not something people do.
Yeah. If I need to get your attention, I kind of just like start talking.
Right. And that's like
go, hey,
normal.
Nick, what do you think of this? I guess, yeah. Yeah, maybe it's just a Gen Z social thing that we're just not doing very well. Yeah, I definitely don't say your last name that much. It's funny. I don't even say, the only time I say my last name or my full name out loud is if somebody is like asking for it, like for, I don't know, if I need to say it out loud for like legal purposes, or if I'm like buying something, I don't know.
I say my last name.
I have to say my last name and spell it out.
I say it the most like probably now because my other podcast that I do, I always introduce with my full name, and that's like the only time I use my last name out loud. But side note,
your last name isn't very descriptive either.
It's like the most basic name.
There's too many Nick Jones.
Yeah.
I was okay, this is embarrassing, but I was practicing introing this podcast in the mirror last night, and I said my full name, and I'm like, oh God, like I'm like, nah, I'm not even gonna do that.
I dดnot practice anything. I showed up this morning and here we are 4 episodes in. I like before you entered the first episode, and like I almost forgot what this podcast was called until you said it out loud. You were like, here's the first episode of the Gimbal Guys podcast. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what it's called. Like literally that went through my head.
I'm sure some people I'm sure some people will find that cringy, but it's kind of like people are always referring to us as like the guys with the gimbals, I guess, at weddings. Or it's like that's the thing most people are like drawn to when they see our whole setup. It's like, whoa, dude, your setup is crazy. And it's like all just because I have the gimbal in my hand. It's like, yep. So we are the Gimbal Guys. All right, that was very long tangent to start.
Very random, but anyway.
What are we diving into today?
Today could be a little dicey, but we're gonna be talking about kind of like boundaries with the couples and maybe some family members, and how we have have seen in the past, a little bit of iffy dynamics and a little bit of iffy things going on between the couple and some family members. So we just wanted to give our 2 cents and share some experiences that we have witnessed.
Yeah, this will definitely, what does everybody say? This will ruffle some feathers. I hate that saying because it's so overused, but it will. It will probably make some people upset. And if you're upset, that means you're probably somebody's mom or
So true.
or
If you're
sister
the one
or
being
something.
upset, then you're probably the problem.
um, so I guess to start things out, during the wedding planning process, I'm gonna ask you because I think you have the strongest opinion on all of this. Who has the say in anything during the wedding planning process?
I mean, yeah, in my opinion, I think it's the couple and I think it's their say. Like literally whatever they say goes. It's about them. This entire celebration is literally just for them. So I don't care if family members are paying for it. I don't care if you're super, super close with anyone else. Like I truly think at the end of the day, the day should be what you as the couple want, not what anyone else wants. Like they can say their opinions, they can give you suggestions, and sure, you can listen to them, you can at least hear them out. But at the end of the day, you do not have to do anything that they tell you. Like you're, in my opinion, not obligated to do what they say. It's whatever you want, period. Because the day is about you. That's
That is
me.
very well said, and that is the end of today's podcast episode. Thank you. I'm just kidding. Um, no, honestly, like that is the main takeaway. Is like, who is this day for? It is for the couple who is getting married. The vendor table says it all the time. I always reference vendor table because they have a lot of really good takes on some of these things, but the wedding day is about two people coming together. Everything else is extra. They live by that, and I live by that too. I completely 100% agree with that.
Yeah. And
Does
unfortunately, that's not
any
what we see all the time.
right. Do you think any of this changes when does money have a driver in this? Does this change when the couple themselves are not paying for the wedding?
Personally, no, I don't think it does. Like, if someone else outside the couple is paying for it, it's because they're offering. They don't have to do it. So, because it's like them just offering it to them, like that has no weight in my opinion. Like they're just doing it because that's what they want to do, not because they have to do it. And even if they did have to do it, I still think it's about the couple. So honestly, no matter what, I still think no matter who pays, it should be the couple's decisions. Their say is final, no matter what, no matter where the money comes from. But I know that's where we
Yeah,
slightly
I
differ.
think just a little bit. So I think if there's money coming in from an outside party, in most cases, in traditional cases, I'll generalize here. A lot of the times, the bride's parents, if any parents are paying for the wedding, it's usually the bride's
It's
parents in the
traditional
traditional
for the
sense
bride's
that,
parents,
and
yes.
yeah. So a lot of the times they end up having a lot of things to say about how the wedding goes, who gets invited, which we'll go into kind of the invitation process in a little bit, but um, I think it is okay to take maybe a few more suggestions in that case if the financial part of it is not coming from you for certain things, but there's definitely a limit, and I agree with your statement where it is coming from if you're getting money, if your wedding is financed from an outside party that is coming to you from purely good standing, purely good faith. So just because you're getting like the wedding kind of like paid for you doesn't mean you really hold any sort of obligation to them. It's like, I think me personally, I'm kind of like a people pleaser in ways. So if I still would feel obligated just knowing myself. Um, but I think the key thing there is if you are getting money from your parents or family member or something like that, have a conversation with your spouse about how you want to handle it. And then have a open, honest conversation with that family member. Be like, hey, like obviously I love you guys. But like we're gonna be doing things this certain way. If that's a deal breaker and you guys don't want to pay for it in that sense, like if you're the couple, like be prepared to kind of like pay for your own decisions. That's at least my opinion on that. But have an open and honest conversation. I think the weird family dynamics come in when you're not talking. I am very grateful the way I was raised, the way my fiance was raised, that we both come from families that are like super open and honest with each other and really have people's like best interests in mind. So if there's like some sort of conflict within that, we know it's not like anything sinister, you know? We know it's like they're coming from a good place because they want to um I guess be nice, and they want to they think they're making the day better. Um it's just all about having those conversations. So yeah,
Yeah.
like
Like so obviously my thoughts are my thoughts, but not because like I'm obviously not married, so I can't necessarily see it from that point of view. But from what I see from the wedding videographer standpoint, when I'm there the day of, the biggest thing that like bothers me and why I think what I do is because most of the time when I see this as an issue is when I see the parents so clearly trying to like live vicariously through their kid. And I hate seeing that because that's just
yeah.
not fair to, the couple. Like it's so obvious that, the parents might not have had the best wedding experience. So they're using their kid as like a second chance to make this wedding partially about them so they can like just feel important and feel satisfied where they might not have gotten it on their first go around. And when I see that, that's like, I hate seeing that because that's just not fair to the couple to have to deal with stuff like that. And I mean,
Yeah. There's a
again,
lot.
no, you go ahead.
I think I was gonna say something different, but I guess a lot of times I would say couples are almost kind of scared to speak up in a way because I mean some people are like just flat out scared of their parents. Other people are um kind of like me where you're like a people pleaser and you have a close relationship with your family. You're afraid to kind of like address certain things. And so I think there's a lot of times where people are afraid to speak up. But definitely by setting those boundaries, you're gonna have a lot better of an experience at the end of the day. Just have that open conversation. Please just talk about it. Please. Like that's super, super important to do. Yeah, no, we've had some crazy experiences involving family members at weddings. I think
Yeah.
the old adage, a lot of people talk about the drunk uncle, that sort of thing. That's a common one.
We've literally had a drunk uncle, so it's true.
It is very true. It's a common thing, and people throw around the words mom and dadzillas and things like that, and I think all that happens from when they just become too involved and too controlling.
Right.
Like there's some cases where um like groom's mothers, we've heard Jake Weisler and Nate Tehan on Runaway Vows talk about this before, but they've had a lot of experiences where like groom's mothers are like insanely obsessed with their sons, and I don't think we've had any personal experiences with that, but we've heard about it. They essentially don't want to let their son go in a way. And there's some moms who have that kind of attachment to their daughters as well. And I think that's a little bit more common. But Yeah, no, there's a lot of tricky relationship things with that. Um, I think where boundaries come into play a lot in the wedding planning process, and I think where things slip a little bit is guests and like who actually ends up getting invited to the wedding, because a lot of the times there are couples who don't know some guests at their weddings
Right. And I don't think that should ever
because
be the
there's
case. Like, I
yeah.
think that's a mistake. They should, if you don't know them and you don't want to talk to them, they shouldn't be there.
Yeah, we're all about being intentional, you know? I say that to our couples on calls. It's like, if you have a massive wedding, like, that's cool. As long as you wanted every single one of those people there.
Right. If you
If
have
some of
200
that,
close friends, invite them all. Great. But if you have like 50 close friends and you have a extra 75 random people just to fill it up more, don't do that.
yeah, that's when it gets a little dicey. Cause I think some people take their, the couple might make a guest list, right? And they take their guest list, and the parents of the bride would be like, "Oh, can you add this person to it? Can you add this like extended relative that we haven't talked to in like 5 years, you know?" So the parents almost provide their secondary guest list
Yeah.
as well. Um always open to suggestions, but you know, goes back to it. The final say should be the couple, in our opinion.
I think I heard someone
And
say if you like
if
haven't talked to the person in like less than 2 years, they shouldn't be at your wedding.
Yeah, that's a good rule to go by. The another one I've heard is if you wouldn't invite them to dinner on a Tuesday night to your place, like, also you probably shouldn't invite them to your wedding. Like, just think about the people who like conversation flows with naturally, you're going to have a good time with. Um like those are the people you want there. And I think weddings are moving in kind of like a downsizing direction now. There's a lot of people who are kind of paring down their guest lists, even having like super small elopements with maybe like 20 people. They might even have nobody there. They might just the bride and groom might just elope, go to a national park, something like that, and just do it with themselves and maybe an officiant. Um, there's a lot of things like that going on now. So I guess these all these things come from conversations. Talk with your spouse, discuss what you guys really want out of your wedding, and
Yeah.
discuss that with the major role players in your family and even your friends too. I think there's also a lot of stress that comes in from the friend standpoint. Um, a little bit about like wedding parties specifically, and we'll talk about like wedding parties probably in another episode, but I think there's some people who get pressured by their friends to have massive wedding parties because they feel like they're obligated to include one person if they include another person, and it ends up kind of like spiraling out of control, and then those people want to bring like plus ones and stuff, which, all right, tangent here. What are your opinions on plus ones at weddings?
I think plus ones are fine. Like I'm not really I don't have a hugely strong opinion about plus ones, to be totally honest. Like I can see it both ways. If you invite one person and they have someone that you have no idea who their like spouse is or partner is, then like I mean, yeah, it might be a little strange if you're like meeting them for the first time on your wedding day, but if it makes that one person you want to be there more comfortable, then I can see that as well. I know it just adds to the ever growing list of guests, and it might fill up with like 20 people or so that you might not know. But if you really wanted that other person, like the person who actually you sent the invite to, if you really want them there and it'll make them feel a lot more comfortable if they can bring a certain someone, like, then I think it's fine. Like, I'm not against plus ones by any means.
Yeah, for sure. This is coming from my kind of like just new experience with kind of the wedding planning process for myself. Um, there's like certain people that we were like, oh, we would love to have them there, and then we were like, do we bring their like significant other as well? Like we don't really know them, but like it might work out. So I think the important thing is like, say you're a guest. If you're a guest receiving a wedding invitation and your significant other's name is not on the invitation, you cannot just show up and bring that person unannounced, or you might be putting the couple in an awkward position if you ask them about that person as well. So if you're a couple sending out invitations, it's like name each person on the invitation who is able to come. And that'll
so
kind of like make your lives, your guest
so
list
you're
easier.
against like just a random plus ones? You don't like that?
Yeah, because well, the other thing is too, like if you just say, if you put on your invitation, like, oh, feel free to bring a plus one, then you got to kind of like plan for doubling your guest count that you have initially expected for. I think you should be intentional with it and name the exact people who can come to your wedding. It's like, yeah, you might feel obligated for one person to have a plus one because they might feel a little out of place or uncomfortable. But also that's like a separate thing. If they would feel uncomfortable at your wedding by themselves, it's probably not the right person to invite to your wedding. You probably wouldn't invite that person over to dinner on a Tuesday night. So it's like, if you use that criteria, like then some of those people might not actually make it onto your final guest list.
Sure.
Yeah. Definitely do not bring one unannounced because it creates a lot of issues with your venue.
I don't think it's ever unannounced. You're at least like always RSVP that you'll have a plus one.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't, if you get paper invitations, paper RSVPs, definitely do not write like, if there's no line to like check off plus one or something, like don't write in somebody else's name. And the worst thing that you could absolutely do, I'm going to send you in a full on rant here. The worst thing that you could do is bring your kids unannounced.
God.
Kids at weddings.
Okay, look. I like kids, okay? I used to babysit kids all the time. Kids are cute. Kids are great.
You do.
I want to have kids. Kids are great. Kids are not great at weddings, okay? Like, you know, a wedding is not a child-friendly event. It's just not. It's an event designed for adults. And unless you have like some totally designated area for like the kids to kind of just run wild and have fun, like that's fine if you have them like in kind of a separate space. But when they're just running around like the reception hall, the reception tent, whatever, during dinner, during toast, like running around screaming during the ceremony that's supposed to be this nice peaceful thing, like that ruins it. One, selfishly again for the video, and two, for the other guests, like it's ruining their experience. They have to deal with hearing this annoying kid scream, visually seeing them run around. Like it's a lot better if you get a babysitter and just leave the kids at home.
It's almost dangerous too. Like,
I mean, around
we have a lot of equipment on.
We've had kids.
We have a lot of equipment.
Pretty much do the limbo through our tripods before, like crawling through our tripod legs. I'm like, kid, if you knock that over and it falls on you, it's going to hurt. Like,
oh God, we've had there's been kids who have gone up to the sweetheart table during toasts and
they were like pawing at the person,
verbally yelling and pawing at the couple,
like a little
at the
dog,
like
just pawing at the like, kid. What are you doing?
And I can only imagine in those situations, those kids are only there because it's like some family member they were obligated to bring, and they felt obligated because that person is family to include those kids. And I'm like, listen, if you are really close with like nieces, nephews, or some other young kids in your family, like feel free to have them there.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's been plenty of there was one wedding this year where I remember there was like one kid who was like she was the flower girl,
right? And like if they're in the wedding, like that,
so well
that's
behaved.
Great. Yeah.
But also don't just like have a flower girl ring bearer if they're not like they're not trained.
I mean, yeah, don't force the little kids to do it. Like, there's been many times
Yeah.
where they clearly don't want to do it.
Yeah, make sure that young kid is good around young crowd. I mean, big crowds, and they can handle themselves in that sort of situation. But if your parents tell you to bring like your brother's kids or something like that, or your sister is like, oh, like I can't find a sitter,
Just
then
don't
too
come.
bad. Like,
Like,
yeah,
when we're
I know I
shooting our
personally would be having a
weddings,
child-free wedding.
when we are filming and like as soon as we see a kid running around, I instantly just think, oh no. Like, that's just how it is. Like, they're in some way, shape, or form at some point of the night, they will probably interfere with something we're trying to do. And that's just inevitable.
Exactly.
Either like we'll walk into them and we'll have to like step carefully because we don't want to like accidentally kick the kid, or like they'll hit our stuff. Like, there's just so many things that could go wrong. So
Yeah, 100%. So if you feel obligated to bring kids at your weddings, don't. Just don't.
Please
If you're
don't.
ever on the fence on it, just put something on your invitation that says, this is an adults only celebration. And if somebody asks you, it says, anyway, if somebody doesn't read that line and asks you anyway, tell them no. That is, honestly, kind of like wrapping this all up. The biggest thing you can do to have the wedding day that you want to have as a couple is to say no more. And
Right.
obviously it's easier said than done. There's a lot of times where you're going to feel obligated to do one thing or the other. But if you just say no more often,
And remember that it's
you've
about
set that
you.
boundary. Yeah, it is about you. You don't have to like be you don't have to feel arrogant by like saying that day is about you, because it's probably one of the few days
It's
in
the
your
day
life
you're allowed
where you
to
can
be
actually
arrogant.
do
Yeah.
something. Yeah, exactly. It's the day where you can do everything exactly the way you want it. So
Right.
like we've had brides come up to us and literally tell us, this is my mom's wedding. And that's
Yeah,
just heartbreaking.
It was horrible.
Like,
She didn't pick out her own dress. She didn't know half the people there. It was just sad. I just felt bad. So
yeah. And that's a situation I can assume most people would agree that you want to avoid.
right.
So
Right.
set those boundaries, communicate, don't be afraid to say no, and
Don't bring
your
your
day
kids.
will go super smoothly. And I think if you don't bring your kids.
Anyway.
If you have a supportive enough like family and friend base, like all those things should come pretty easily. So that will help smooth out any like weird dynamics on the day of, during the planning process, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of a wrap for our episode today. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at SeaMount Weddings. Follow us on, or subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on Spotify. Are we doing Apple Podcasts? I'm not sure, but
We'll
if
see.
we are,
Yeah.
you
Show
might
notes,
already be listening on Apple
5-star
Podcasts.
reviews.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah.
And leave your stories and episode suggestions below. Yeah, we will catch you guys in the next episode.
See you in the next
Peace.
one.